let's take the Columbia student. It was Mahmoud Khalil,
right.
who is in jail in Louisiana, I believe, right now.
That's right.
And he will be deported. The argument is, hey, it might not be nice, but we have a legal framework for this, and the Secretary of State can determine if somebody is a threat to national security. And this man, again, I'm just telling you their argument,
Right.
this man supports Hamas. They are a organization that is described by the State Department as a terror organization, rightfully so. What's wrong with that argument?
Show me something that he's done, right? Show me something that's not just mere words. It reminds me of the old line appropriated by formerly known as Kanye West, that dude. No one man should have all that power. The Secretary of State giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down on whether someone lawfully admitted to be here, committed no crimes, no misconduct, can be kicked out just because of his opinion. I'd like to think that Americans are made of sterner stuff than that. I mean, you know, the First Amendment, I think of fundamentally as a check on government, right? It's not a permission slip, like you can say this stuff. It bounds government. It prevents government from hauling off and deciding that someone's political views are too crazy, and now they got to go.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to conflate his views, which I don't really know because everyone said he's a Hamas supporter. I presumed that some video had come out of him saying Allahu Akbar and, like, you know, praising the martyrs or something. And maybe he's done that. Maybe I haven't seen it. And I am open to that. And I don't want to say his views are comparable to X or Y views. But is it uncommon for, say, the State Department to say, well, we don't want this student coming in because we found out that he works hand in glove with a violent neo-Nazi organization in Ukraine and Russia and South Africa, wherever it might be. And they say, you know what, we're going to pass on this one. I suspect most people wouldn't be exercised by that. But does something like that happen?
I think the difference here, and you've identified it perfectly, is when you're let in the country, right?
Yeah.
You can have some screening, some view review when you come in, if you like that, just to coin a phrase. But once you're here lawfully, you're here. I mean, the First Amendment should protect you, especially when you're here on a green card. We're not talking about someone on a student visa whose status here is dependent on.
And legally, there is a difference.
Yeah, in fact, those
green card, you're afforded more rights than if you were just on a student visa.
I would argue that if you're here lawfully, whether you're here on a student visa or you're here on a green card, you should be treated the same. Viewpoint discrimination is bad no matter what. I don't want Americans to start getting comfortable with going to a protest and a cop can come up and say, let's see your papers. Papers, please.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, your passport on you, you just got a green card, you got your student visa, out you go. I mean, I don't want to start getting comfortable. I don't want to normalize that.
Yeah, I mean, it is normalized in other countries that entry to the country can often be prevented because of views. I mean, I know, Milo Yiannopoulos or something is banned from
Milo.
Australia, and there's, people that are banned from the UK. That's not something that I enjoy.
Right.
That's not something, I mean, I've argued against that in the past, and I think it should be argued against here in almost every way. But, what are those, stops that should exist? I mean, so you have, I mean, how common, let's start with so many damn questions.
We could go
Let me start this way. How common is, we saw the woman in, I believe, Somerville, Massachusetts, going to Tufts, am I right?
Right, yep.
Who was surrounded by agents.
Right.
This is also true with the Columbia student. There was somebody else who was coming back from doing some field research, and they said she had some contraband in her bag, but there might have been something else. I mean, is it that these are outliers, and we should be obviously very attentive to the outliers?
Right.
We want them to remain outliers. Or is this happening more than we know?
One thing I always want to be clear about is I'm just a humble First Amendment lawyer. I'm not an immigration lawyer. I've taken a crash course like the rest of my colleagues at FIRE over the last 6 to 8 weeks. But, when these things first started happening, I called one of my friends who does immigration work on the Lower East Side. I said, what's the deal here? Like, on a practical matter, to your question, are these things that just happen every day, but now we're seeing them? And he said, well, look, people have always looked at social media, right? There is some awareness of who's coming in. But once you're here, you're here. And that's the deal. And that's how it's got to be if America's going to be exceptional. If America is going to be this shining beacon of light, this city on the hill, you can't just start hauling people off because you're out of favor with the regime. I mean, again, those are dangerous directions to point.
But you don't see it as that it's happening in, this is 5 people,
right,
25 people, 125 people. What is the sense that you have? And again, I'm not holding you to these numbers, but obviously people are contacting you. You're following this, yeah.
That's part of the scary thing, is that for a while, schools didn't know, right? So you were just having visas canceled willy-nilly. And the school would have to find out later, and the student would have to find out later. And it just seemed in that way that I think is endemic of everything that's happened this first 100 days. It seemed kind of blunderbuss, right? It seemed like a shotgun instead of a scalpel. They're just flipping switches, and out you go. And what's creepy to me about it is that some of it seems to be informed by outside groups, third-party groups, in this case pro-Zionist groups that have assembled a list of people who have participated in protests. People have written op-eds, like the tough student Romeza Ozturk, and they're just going down the list. Check, check, check. A blacklist of people maintained by a third-party group. Okay, you have the First Amendment right to maintain whatever blacklist you want. But when the government starts using that as a handy-dandy guide to kick people out, we're in a different place.
Is this kind of stuff? I mean, let's pull the aperture out a little bit, because FIRE, that last E in FIRE in that acronym used to be education. Now it's expression. You've picked up where the ACLU fumbled. The education component of this, the administration is going after Harvard, is going after Columbia. Those are the 2 big ones. I don't know what kind of rearguard actions are being taken against other places, but who knows?
Yeah.
But the Harvard thing, you have a lot of people that I think were probably supporters of FIRE in the past, maybe pulling donations or saying, I don't know if I can support you guys, because this administration is attacking this illiberal institution, which is Harvard. In Harvard, I will remind people, FIRE does a list. If you don't know this, you should make sure to look at this. Harvard was number 1, and number 1 is bad.
That's right.
That's not a good number 1. It was number 1 on the list of offenders, of speech offenders, Harvard University in last year's ranking, I think. Right?
They suck.
They suck.
They're in last place.
So let me put it to you. Fuck them. They suck. Put the fear of God into them. Make them straighten things out, and we're back on track.
There's an Onion headline that says, "Holy shit, person can't believe he's defending Harvard."
Yeah,
That's kind of where we are. But listen, there's a process here. You can't have the purported cure be worse than the disease. They're ostensibly going after anti-Semitism, and they're cutting federal funding. Again, blunderbuss shotgun. What you have to do is say, here's what you've done. We had a federal investigation. You worked with us. You got to work with us by informal means wherever possible. This is not me, pulling this out of thin air. These are federal regulations. And if the school still won't take action to correct it, then you move to an administrative hearing. There's a finding process. Congress gets to weigh in, the relevant congressional committees. Long story short, Michael, there's
Congress
a process.
Does not exist anymore.
Congress. Remember them?
Yeah, this is the imperial presidency.
I think there were 3 branches at some point, right? But so there's a process to be followed. And again, no matter what you think of the ends, the means count. That's how we guard against, arbitrary decision-making of whoever's in power gets to decide who gets to exist and who doesn't as an institution. That's just wrong. And we fought against it again in under Obama as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that, politics has become much more of a team sport in my lifetime, particularly because of Twitter and things like this. And everybody lines up behind their team. And you see people already after 100 days starting to peel off and saying, I don't know about this. Might not be the best thing. And even psychotic anti-Semites like Candace Owens, who is, useless in almost every way, saying, well, I want to defend Harvard on this one. I can't believe I'm saying it. It's like, well, it's because they're fighting anti-Semitism,
when you've lost Candace Owens.
When you lost Candace Owens, I mean, where does the world go from here? But yeah, this stuff is that I just would advise people, particularly when it comes to the anti-Semitism stuff, because I know a lot of people who take this very seriously.
Sure.
They should. October 7th being, the largest massacre of Jews in one short period of time since the Holocaust. So it's a serious, serious issue. I take it very seriously. But I do sometimes want to throw it back and just say, look, if it was anti-blackness. If it was DEI type policies and it was the AOC administration saying we're going to punish you for not, taking seriously the concerns of black students, which is something they've been saying for a long time. I think with very little evidence they've been saying these sorts of things. But yeah, it's usually when the narrators change or when the heroes change, the story changes a lot.
That's right.